Hi, and welcome back to In the Gray Area with REVV Health. I'm Brittany.
And I'm Travin.
And today we are going to dive into a subject that's very dear to my heart. We're going to kind of talk about fertility.
I'm glad we're doing this because I don't think this is something we kind of really set out to focus on a lot. But as we've kind of been in business here for a few years now, we're seeing it more and more and more, and we're dealing with it a ton. And, it's really cool how we've actually been able to help quite a few couples in this regard. And so I think it's important to talk about.
Yeah, I agree. And we're seeing it more and more. And just like last week's episode on endocrine disruptors, obviously that plays a huge part. But more than anything, it's about hormone imbalance and just getting that right. And a lot of times we see that like when a couple comes in and they are trying maybe for 6 months, a year, even longer, that they both are the perfect storm.
Yeah. It's usually both of them, right? And I think it's funny because at least me, like in my head, I usually think of the guy first. Like when a couple has trouble getting pregnant, like immediately for some reason I go to like, oh, it's the guy's issue, but we're seeing like it's a lot of times it's both
Yeah.
together.
And I think that's normal. And I
Yeah.
think that a lot of guys that can really hurt their ego too
Mhm.
when they're having a hard time getting pregnant and they
Yeah.
feel like they let down their
Yeah.
partner. And
Yeah. Well, fertility, it just doesn't get talked about. Like you said, it goes hand in hand with hormones. But, when we talk about like low testosterone, we think of the energy and the mood and libido and everything, but we don't really talk about like fertility and the impact that it has on that. And so all these guys that have low testosterone, like a lot of these guys are running around with low sperm counts too. And so it's a real problem.
yeah, it is. And a lot of times, like when our females come in, we're going to do the blood work. And first and foremost, we're going to take a look at like, do they have PCOS? And we talk about that all the time. Like we're seeing more women than not have PCOS. And that is a huge problem when it comes to fertility.
Yeah. What percentage of women that we see do you think have PCOS?
Absolutely, at least 2/3.
Yeah,
At
that's
least.
what I was going to say. At the
Like,
very least, two
yep.
thirds.
And
Yeah.
we're seeing more and more adrenal hyperplasia too, which is crazy because just not too long ago, people would have said that that was like the least likely to see when it came to like the 4 different types of PCOS. But
Hmm. Yeah. Most people wouldn't even know what adrenal hyperplasia is or have even heard of it.
yeah. But especially with the women coming in, one of the major issues with PCOS is they don't have enough progesterone. And so progesterone, first and foremost, is going to be one of the most important things. We need to make sure that the female has adequate amount of progesterone. We do not believe in cycling. So we are going to make sure that the female patient is taking their progesterone daily, alongside like making sure that they have adequate amounts of thyroid support. And the two together are really key when it comes to not only like combating PCOS, but even helping with fertility. So a lot of times they are getting on these though, and maybe they are actually able to get pregnant, but they don't quite understand even how important it is to continue during their pregnancy for a healthy pregnancy, a healthy baby.
Yeah, I mean, just even like breaking down the word progesterone, like like gestational, like it's a progestational hormone. Like obviously you need adequate levels of this to even for pregnancy to even occur, and then like you said, even throughout the pregnancy, like it's one thing to get it, but then maintain a healthy pregnancy, is important too. So it's like optimizing those hormones and making sure that things are still optimized and you're living a healthy lifestyle during the pregnancy as well.
Yeah, but a lot of times people are coming in and they're like, well, my doctor does have me on progesterone. And it's like we take a look at it and it's like maybe a cream and it's super low dose, or it's a low dose still, but it's slow release. And so even like combating that kind of stuff and helping them like relearn what their body truly needs.
Yeah, I think like if you haven't already, like reiterate to the ladies, like a progesterone cream is not going to systemically raise your levels whatsoever. Like you're not going to get sufficient enough levels using a cream, right? So like that's like like no one should be using that anyways. And then when it comes to like the progesterone, like oral progesterone, which is what's preferred, like then you need to make sure you're using the right type and that you're getting the right type of absorption.
Yeah, and also just understanding that like progesterone is really important because it really does help balance out the other hormones, especially estrogen.
Yeah, absolutely.
So maybe you could just kind of talk a little bit more about like what we're seeing with our male patients too.
Yeah. So for guys, like I mentioned earlier, like low testosterone, low sperm count, like those two things go hand in hand. So, you know, it's cool now because we do have a lot of options to help, increase fertility, and we've been able to help a lot of guys do that. Whether it's just a young man that is trying to get pregnant that just has low sperm function in general that we're trying to help, or it's a guy that maybe has been on testosterone therapy for a while that's suppressed his production that we, are trying to restore that as well, which usually we can do no problem. And I think that's important to note for guys because for so long, it's been thought of that once you start testosterone therapy, it's really going to have a negative impact on your fertility, which, it can in the meantime, but we have so many tools to restore that, like when the time comes, or even to go alongside of therapy to help maintain that, during the process. It's just, it's always important. Like if you are a young guy and you want to get started on testosterone, like I would strongly encourage you to get like a semen analysis beforehand, because then you know where things are at. And then, if you want to be 100% sure, you can even like cryopreserve sperm, or there's tons of options you can do to still be on testosterone and still be able to, have kids in the future.
So that kind of goes back even to what we mention all the time about couples, it being really important to kind of do this together. Getting your blood work done together, sitting down together, figuring out a plan. That goes hand in hand with fertility too.
Yeah, for sure. Because it causes a problem if we're addressing, one spouse, and it's like we can keep trying things and like pushing things, but if the other person is in a state of, their body is not adequate for fertility, and it's kind of like, spinning our wheels at that point.
Yeah, it's a good place to start, that you both just get your blood work done and see where you're both are at either way. And then we can kind of figure out how to target and go from there. But it's really sad because again, like we're seeing it more and more and all the time, like people are having such a hard time getting pregnant. And I recently read something that said that basically we will be infertile by the year 2050.
Yeah, I saw that too. It's crazy, but yeah, it coincides with all of these, declining hormone levels and the endocrine disruptors, like we talked about on the last episode. I mean, it is like this perfect storm of things that are just impacting our body.
Yeah, it makes me like even kind of nervous for my own children.
Yeah, I've thought about that too. Isn't that ironic where it's like it used to be like you're worried about your kids, getting pregnant too young, and now it's like kind of almost like, gosh, like are they even going to ever be able to get pregnant?
I know I recently said something to Austin and I was like, okay, buddy, like we got to keep doing this. Got to make sure you're fertile. He's like, no, we do not need to make sure I'm fertile.
Yeah, it's not
So-
something that typically like has been said, but here we are. Like it's the world we live in now. It's things are just so flipped upside down. But yeah, I mean, you certainly don't want that for your child. But then, I mean, you got to do all the right things. And with him, we are. I mean, we do have him doing some things that, hopefully will put him in an optimal state.
and with the girls too. So addressing the PCOS at an early age is definitely going to help with fertility. Like we always talk about, eating clean, exercising, all of that kind of stuff's great. Just kind of getting ahead of it and just making sure that there's more awareness. People need to know what a major issue this really is.
Yeah, it's so cool. Some of these like really young women we've been able to work with recently that have PCOS and kind of get them going. Like it's going to be cool to see, in a year or two down the road, like how much of an impact that's made for them. I think that's really cool.
We have one couple specifically that we're working with that are young, and they both are perfect storm. So we're working with him and her, and she hadn't had a cycle in 4 months. So getting her on testosterone, thyroid, progesterone, she's already the last 4 months had a cycle every month. That's normal. So that's huge improvement in itself. No baby yet, but that's coming soon.
Like also I wanted to comment too, like the guys that are on testosterone therapy, like I've seen more guys come to us lately from a certain clinic and they're on testosterone and gonadorelin, and their provider or the clinic that they're working with is telling them that is going to preserve their fertility while they're on testosterone. And like, you guys need to know, like gonadorelin, especially, taking it a couple times a week, like they're doing, is absolutely doing nothing in terms of your fertility. So if you're working with someone that's telling you otherwise, you need to run.
Yeah, I agree completely. And we see
Mhm.
that way too much.
It blows my mind actually that occurs.
So that's why I would just really encourage young men and women, couples, even if you're not necessarily looking to like get pregnant, have a baby anytime soon, just get your blood work checked out and give yourself some time, like a good 6 months to a year even,
Yeah.
just to make sure that your body is running properly and that you have adequate amounts of hormones, not just to get pregnant, but for the health of your baby too.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say too. I mean, it very well can take a good 12 months for both a man and a woman to get on the right track of like getting your body in that state of fertility that it needs to be in.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
So, if any of these symptoms that we've talked about or something like hits home and you want to reach out to us, please feel free to reach out at rev.health and we'd be happy to help you. Like always, please like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you next time. Thank you.